on? It's Dharma Guy, and you're listening to Dharma Time on WPSN99.com, the problem-solving network, where we stream solutions. Welcome. It is Tuesday, and it feels fantastic outside, I gotta say. It kind of sucks because I know the 80 degrees are coming, but I love the fact that I woke up this morning to take my kids to school, and it was 40-something degrees, and coming in it was 50. I'm loving the weather. Thank you so much. I like it. Although the pollen still sucks. I still got the Florida snow going on here. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump to some of the thanks. Let's go ahead and thank the sponsors. We got Retreat Premier Addiction Treatment Centers. I'm looking forward to seeing them at our golf tournament coming up on Monday. Always a great time when they're around. Same thing with Journey Pure, our other sponsor, Patrick Dunn. Got love for you, brother. Love the Notre Dame's coming up. We're going to have some good conversation there. And, of course, you got Orange County. We have a drug meeting coming up with them on Thursday. Thank you so much for your support. You guys are awesome.
A drug meeting?
Yeah, drug treatment meeting, I guess is what.
Okay.
Orange County Drug-Free Coalition. And, of course, Now Mattis More Foundation, of which I am the president, and Dope Doctor here is the founder. We have our golf tournament coming up on Monday. Can't believe that it's coming up this quickly. I thought we had so much more time, but time flies. Having said that, we got some great things coming up for that. We're completely sold out, so for those of you who are attending, thank you so much for that. I do believe that if you're a special individual or you feel that you're special, reach out. We might have one spot, maybe two for you. However, everything else is sold out, so thank you so much for the sponsors. It's always a great time. I'm looking forward to it. We got some great items to give away for our raffle. Some people have been really good to us this year, and I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, we have a new tradition we're starting on Sunday night prior. Some of our larger sponsors, the title ones, as well as our celebrities. We're going to meet up at Top Golf and have some good mingling happening. So I'm looking forward to that. Get to bring the wifey out. It's going to be a good time. Anyways, so moving on, we do have, coming up after this show, we have Recovery Radio with Steve Moderano. Great interviewer. Always got some good stuff going on, so be sure to stay tuned for that one. And then one of our sister shows, sisters, see how I did that? Sisters.
Yeah, that was pretty slick.
They are sisters. The Lemon Squeeze Show, one of our very own, JoJo Knows. She was a speaker, and I'm going to make sure I get this right. The second annual Stepping Into Sisterhood is by at Women by Choice, and that's I'm assuming that's a social media tag there, at Women by Choice. She was a guest speaker there, and so I wasn't able to listen because I'm not an at Woman by Choice, but I'm 100% positive she knocked it out of the park. Always love listening to her speak. She's very well accomplished and has a lot of good stuff to say. If you haven't listened yet, check out the Lemon Squeeze Show. They are fantastic. I think their new shows come on Mondays at 7. Is a good time to check that out. So,
and they're gonna guest host for the Couch Live.
Yes, they are
from the golf tournament.
Yes, they are. That should be interesting. They get to put their Louis and Dharma Guy and Dope Doctor hats on.
Yeah, should we let them use our hats for that or something, or how are they gonna?
I'm wear mine, so probably not.
Oh, you're gonna wear your actual Dharma Guy hat. You're not wearing the Now Matters More hat.
It's dirty. If I can get it clean between now and then, I will. My cleanliness is more important than my branding, I guess. For those of you who saw my Instagram and social media stuff. If you're not following me, why not? It's at the Dharma Guy. But I posted a thing on there about what today's show is going to be about. And so for the last probably week, I've been trying to figure out what I want to talk about. I normally try to rely on something happening in the media, out there in the news world to take place that I can kind of give a spiritual perspective on. And I was let down this week, man. There wasn't anything major that took place, right?
There's not enough news out there for you?
Yeah, not enough, I don't know. The normal news was happening. Nothing major happened that I was able to kind of latch onto to give some insight on. And so I was talking to Louis here, and I was like, man, what could it be about? And he said a word that I've never heard before that I kind of was like, what? And his word was musturbation. Yes, musturbation. I, like you, probably heard that. I was like, what? What did you just say? So he talked to me a little bit about it, which I'm going to let him introduce it here in a second because I can't take credit for it. But I did look it up, and it's actually a word that's been out there. And you know, it fit in very nicely with what I kind of already put out there a little bit, as well as what is happening in the news right now. And it's more of a collective news, not any specific story. And so I will turn it over to the Dope Doctor here for a second. And so when you heard musturbation, what exactly is it that you were inferring that day, please?
Me? What I was inferring? Well,
absolutely.
Well, because everybody's got rules on you. Everybody's got a rule on how you must be. And when you don't meet their needs or meet their expectations, and we've talked about that before,
Yes.
they tend to get really upset about it. And what I see a lot of times, especially if you scroll through social media anytime
Yes.
recently, you'll see a lot of people very frustrated with other people not living up to the expectations they had of them. So they want them to look the way they have defined them in their life. For instance, if they were a friend of theirs from high school, the way they viewed them in high school, they want them to still be that friend they viewed in high school. They didn't want you to evolve into a different creature that you have now become, and you have these political views that are different than theirs.
Yeah, well, you know what? Speaking on that, actually, there was somebody I knew back in the day that I would interact with a lot more that used to say to me, that we lost contact for a little while,
Okay.
right? Not a tremendous amount of time, but when I met with this person again, and we were kind of like talking and being friends, the person kept saying to me, you changed, you're different.
Oh, really?
And they kept saying it as if it was a bad thing, and I was like, thank you. You know, like, 'cause to me, if you're not changing,
Did you mean I evolved?
exactly. If you're not changing and evolving, then you're kind of going backwards. You know, and I had a show on personal growth. Go look it up. It's on YouTube. I had a show on it where if you're not moving forward, if you're not growing, then you're going backwards. Actually, so this idea of you changed, you know, but at the end of the day, all this person really meant was I'm not who they thought that I was anymore. Like, you're not fitting within that little box that I thought you should have fit in, and so now it's not that you've grown, it's you've changed, and it was like such a negative thing, and I think one of the best examples of that right now, and we have quite a few of them we're gonna go over,
Right.
but let's get the fun one right out of the way. Let's get it right out of the gate, I guess. The Trump thing. Right?
Oh, boy.
How many times have you heard? And I'm not going to give my personal take on whether I am pro or anti-Trump.
Yeah, you are.
No, I won't. I'll keep it to myself.
It'll be in there.
Maybe.
Read between the lines, folks.
Sure. Anyways, so the thing that I hear quite consistently from a lot of people is he's not presidential.
Oh, God, you hear that all the time.
I hear it all the time. It's like, that's not very presidential. And that's where the musty, right? The masturbation starts coming in. He must be this, must be that, right?
Yep.
And I think that they're missing a point a lot of times was for those individuals who did vote for them, it's quite evident, I think, that the reason why they voted for him was because they felt he was different. You know, that he wasn't the status quo.
Correct.
Whether you agree or disagree with what he's representing, you have to at least acknowledge that that's why he won, was because he was so different. Right. And yet they're all surprised and upset when he acts different. And so for me, as we were talking earlier, there's a Bill of Rights and the Constitution which kind of dictate what the president should or shouldn't be.
And that's it.
And so I operate under the guise, if you will, that no matter what you do, if you are the president, it immediately becomes presidential, does it not?
Everything you do is presidential at that point, isn't it?
I would agree with that.
But I think they're using it as an adjective.
Yes. I think they're looking at it as you know what it is?
What?
Obama.
That's what they're saying. You're not Obama.
Exactly. I think that's what it is. Because I think we were all, spoiled. Because Obama was such a great orator. He was so good.
See, right there, you just gave a hint by saying we were all spoiled. I don't think a lot of the people that voted for Trump felt spoiled.
I'm not talking about policies. I'm talking about just the way he speaks. Because even people who support Trump can admit that he's not a good talker.
No.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm just saying, and this has nothing to do with my personal opinion. It's the people that like him. Some of them don't like the way he speaks, but there are people that love the way he speaks. Because this guy, even during the race, he says, I can do no wrong. He almost did like the John Lennon thing, where he says, we're bigger than Jesus Christ.
He said he could shoot somebody
and still
in the
sold
street.
albums.
Yeah.
He said he could shoot somebody in the street and you know what? He still won.
He probably would, he won.
I mean, they actually had...
Well, he had the pussy grabber thing. And I thought that was going to be the end of him, to be honest with you, and he
still won.
Yeah. But even still, I've heard a lot of them who
because maybe that was presidential. Maybe we had thoughts of Clinton.
JFK, too.
And JFK, there you go.
But the whole point with them was I think they just didn't take it literally, kind of a thing. That's what their excuse was. Right. So not taking it literally is just a polite way of saying, I don't like what he says, but I don't really care. Yeah. Basically is what I interpret that to mean. Right. But that's an example of when we put all these, like, these musts on somebody. You must do this. You must do that. The other two I have out there, and we'll start talking about them. I have president, and then I went into friends and spouses, right? Because I think friends and spouses are the two. Well, the president, just because it's in the news.
Are we done talking about? I want to go back to the president.
Go for it. What do you want to talk about?
Well, no, because I think that's of all the things that we're dealing with right now. Mm-hmm. Tell me, have you ever known anyone to get so frustrated as much as they do right now with this? I mean, no matter what the guy does. if you did not vote for him, you're still upset that he doesn't meet what you want him to look like.
Well, and that's the conversation.
But you didn't vote for him, so he's not performing for you.
Sure.
Because he already told you who he was.
Technically, he is supposed to be performing for us.
But he's performing for you in the way he feels like he should.
Sure.
He just thinks that you don't understand what you need and what you really want.
Right?
I mean,
I think that
he's
is what
focused
it is.
on the finances.
Sure.
He's not focusing on hurting your feelings.
He's a businessman, and that's the route he's going to go.
Yeah, he doesn't care that he hurts your feelings.
He wasn't elected to do social change. That's not what his. That's
Right.
not.
Right.
I don't know if anybody who even did vote for him thought he was going to be the champion of social change. It's just not what he ran on. So
yeah, well, I can't pay my bills with social change.
Touche. But I think it's interesting though that a lot of the individuals I have spoken about, there's without getting into the actual the debate on policy issues.
Right.
Overwhelmingly, what I hear a lot is people are angry because he's not living up to what they felt the must-be's.
Right.
The must-haves,
I would love someone to tell me what president actually lived up to exactly what they said they were going to do and all the musts that they had for them.
Of course.
I mean, haven't we for generations, haven't you on your entire life heard people complain about politicians?
That's all I hear about politicians.
Isn't there always 50% of the population complaining about the politicians?
What I think is funny is everybody says they don't trust politicians because they lie all the time.
Yeah.
But then they get really upset when Trump does it.
Yeah.
They all lie, last I checked. But regardless, I digress. My point being is to kind of keep on topic. The thing I hear most is and I bring up the president just because it's fun to talk about, but there is a deeper thing here.
It's easier to show what you're saying, what you're talking about.
But we do it in our daily lives anyways,
right.
with everybody we come into contact with. And that's kind of what I'm going to focus on here is that takes us away from the happiness that we're craving sometimes.
Absolutely.
Is because we put all these expectations, we put all these must-haves. Like, if I'm going to be your friend, if we're going to be cool, we're going to have a good relationship, you must do all these things.
Right.
And if you don't do all these things the way I think they should be done, then I'm going to have a problem with it. And that's kind of why I posted, once again, on my social media thing, I posted a saying, I think it was last week. This essentially said, you can't save people. You got to love them where they're at,
right?
Kind of a thing. It wasn't those exact words, but you get the point. And it has to do with, in Buddhism, we have this thing called equanimity. And I know we've had this conversation numerous times.
Yeah, that word just always throws me.
I know. So I'm going to explain it now. Equanimity is essentially just the concept of allowing people to be where they're at. That's really all it kind of means. It's just a sexy way of saying, that's where you're at in your journey. I'm going to let you be there, kind of a thing.
Yeah, for some reason that word just doesn't scream that to me, but okay.
The problem we get into is oftentimes, and you could probably relate to this as well in the recovery world, and that is, I know with spirituality, and an example I typically use was how long could you sit there, and Albert Einstein is known for saying one of the hardest things to do is to know how to do something right and watch somebody do it wrong. And so how long, I'm assuming first of all, we know how to put batteries into a remote. I'm hoping, right? So hopefully if everybody knows how to do that. So how long, knowing how to do that, how long could you stand over and watch somebody mess it up? Just fiddle and just put them in wrong. How long could you watch that person mess that up before you're like, okay, just give it to me, I'll do it? Most people wouldn't last long. And so with the spiritual world, at least, is and I've seen it, is when we have groups and talks and discussions and I give people ideas that kind of impact them and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of that. The first thing they want to do is go back to all their friends and family and start wagging their finger and telling them all what they need to be doing differently. Like, no, what you need to do is this, what you need to do is that,
Right.
And that's just not where that person is at on their journey. That's not where they're at, where they're ready to hear that. That's where you were at. And if you think about it, you've probably been told something along those lines before then. It just never hit because you weren't ready to hear it. So, like, I can relate to that, being angry and mean and pissed off and violent half my life. I had no shortage of people coming to me and telling me, hey, you probably shouldn't do those things. And you know what? For everybody that told me that, if you're watching, you were right. 100% you were correct. I just wasn't ready to hear it.
Right.
So it went in one ear and out the other. So it wasn't until I got to that point in my journey where I was ready to hear, when I was ready to listen, I was teachable, that it made an impact. So I think that's what happened with equanimity. That's what happens is you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is what I learned. Now I need to go help everybody else. What help means is you're doing it wrong. Let me show you how to do it right. And I think that's in addiction. I see that as well sometimes. We are both in the addiction world outside of here, and I follow some other forums and stuff on Facebook as well. And I see that a lot is because somebody's in recovery now, they're experts in recovery, and now they're trying to give all this. I don't mean it. It's not coming from a malintent. Like they're not angry. They think that they're helping, but what they're really doing is saying, "This worked for me. This is what you have to do."
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same kind of concept. That's what equanimity is basically.
Right. As soon as they put the must on there, or that
well,
you
this
should
is
do
what
this.
you've got to do.
Right. Then that's when it becomes a problem. Instead of making it a suggestion, attraction rather than promotion. A lot of people don't do that.
I love that
but
phrase.
but even in regular life, it should be attraction rather than promotion, right? That shouldn't be a recovery deal.
No, I agree. I love that phrase, attraction.
Right.
I use it all the time.
Right.
But
But we as parents don't parent that way.
No, not at all.
mean,
and that's actually the other one I have listed here, by the way, that
Okay.
we put all these conditions and stuff on. So, but sticking with friends and spouses, right? So, I don't think other than kids,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a group of people that we put more conditions and more must-haves on other than our spouses and like our close friends. I hear that all the time, right?
And even
Like,
parents, for some reason, we put expectations on them as well.
yeah, I can see that.
Instead of just letting them be older and let them
This is
like,
where they're at.
yeah, man, they got
Yeah.
you here. Just kind of let them
Yeah.
like relax the rest of the way.
And if anybody's deserved the right to kind of like get things wrong, it would be our parents.
Yeah, for some
deserve
reason, my parents can be wrong as hell, and I don't
Exactly.
care. I really don't.
So with spouses and friends, right? And that's where the must-haves come into play. That's what I'm assuming, anyways. When you brought the masturbation, this is kind of I love that word, by the way.
Thought you would.
Yeah, and I looked it up, and it was what was that guy's name? The
Albert Ellis.
Albert Ellis.
Yeah.
He actually tells a story on his website about it.
Oh, did he?
When I found it, he was I don't remember all the details, but it was basically he was on a train, like a subway train, I think it was, and he noticed all these people that he felt were infringing on his ability to enjoy his ride home. Because they had one dude had like a rat on his shoulder, another person was doing something else, and he's like, in order for me to enjoy this, you guys all need to be doing things differently.
Right.
And so he wasn't. That was kind of his way of explaining it.
So
Essentially,
he was sitting on the subway masturbating.
exactly the entire way home.
Yeah.
Which at any point he could have just moved and been happy, but instead, no, you guys all got to change. But I think we do that. We put conditions and stuff on people all the time, right? And that affects our own happiness, because then you spend all your time trying to quote unquote correct this other person and trying to get them to do what you think they should be doing, as opposed to just allow them to be where they're at, man.
So much wasted energy.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, really, so much wasted energy when you sit there and you just really get frustrated that someone else is not acting accordingly. It's like you did the bold lines outside of whatever you think they are, and they colored outside of those lines. It's their dang painting.
Well-
They should be able to color outside the lines of their own painting.
Well, the thing is, and I'm gonna say it again just because I love saying it.
Right.
But there was a movie, Varsity Blues, back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And this is what I think of whenever I think of these things. And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a pretty good movie. There's a scene in there where the father and the son are arguing,
Yeah.
and the son is trying to put all these conditions and expectations, trying to tell the son, this is what you must be doing. You must be doing this, and you must. And then in the middle of the argument, the son just turns. I'm gonna say it with the accent because I love it.
Okay.
The son turns to him and says, "I don't want your life," And
Yeah.
it was such a beautiful moment. It was such an impactful moment because at the end of the day, that's what he was doing. Was he was coming from his own perspective, saying, "Look, this is what I want for you, and this is what I think you should be doing. This is the path that you should be on." And then the son was like, I don't want the life that you want for me. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. with
Yeah,
my
that's your
life."
vision.
Yeah.
That's not my
and-
vision.
Exactly. And so I think that's, once again, we do it to our spouses. We do it to our friends.
I mean, and you know what? I'm glad you're talking about friends, because I'm sure a lot of people don't think that they put that kind of expectation on their friends. I'm
yeah.
sure they don't think that they actually do a.
Go to Facebook and look up the word, just highlight the word loyalty. Because you're all of a sudden now, if you're my friend,
You're supposed to be a ride or die.
yeah, if you don't drop everything and forget your entire family, all the stuff
Right.
to come help me right now, oh, you're not a good loyal friend.
Oh yeah. Look, I don't loan money.
Exactly.
There's been people that got a little upset about that thing.
Well, yeah, don't.
But if I loan you money, you're probably not gonna like the me that you've brought out of me.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm willing to give you money, that we're a whole different thing. But if I'm not
Sure.
willing to give it to you, I can't loan it to you, because then I become LMFD, not LD.
I send Fat Tony into my house, break my leg. and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just it's my money.
Sure.
You can ask my friends from high school what I've done for $100.
I'm
If
sure.
you owed me $100, I mean that was. I think I got a motorcycle when I was 15 years old for $100.
That's when the street starts coming out.
Yeah, that's where it comes out.
Hey, I haven't always been a Buddhist, right?
That's right.
But anyways, so yeah, so the masturbation essentially is just sitting back in your world, and to use another word that maybe people would be more familiar with, even though I hate this concept, I'm going to say it because I think they'll be more familiar with it. Is sitting back and judging.
Yeah.
Sitting back and judging everybody else's decisions, their path, where they're at, kind of, and what their likes are and their dislikes are and stuff. Even though I hate the word judging, because that's how we survived as a species, is by judging. But regardless, the meaning that it has in today's world is sitting back and judging everybody's things. And I think it's important that, like with kids, for instance, and you've helped me, actually, believe it or not, with this. And I would like to think we've helped each other with it. But, we both come from a little bit more of an old school mentality of we believe in like face-to-face meetings. We believe in social stuff. We believe in like maybe putting down the video game controller every now and then, getting out there, meeting people and whatnot. So our tendency then is for our kids is to say, hey, you don't need to be doing this. You need to get out there. You need to do this. You need to do that. But we have to stop and say, well, hold up. Do they?
Right.
Because in the new world that they're growing up in, they don't have to have pen pals, for instance. Like if when I was a kid, when I was in elementary, if I wanted to speak to somebody in another country, I'd have a pen pal.
Yeah.
I had to write a little letter to them, mailed off, and wait, and it'll come back. Yeah. In today's world, you can pick up, I've got people on my friends list from like different countries, for God's sakes. And so in this new world that they're growing up in, I think it's our job to let go just a little bit and allow them to be on their path. And remember that we're kind of the whole, get off my lawn.
Right.
That's the role that we're playing now. As much as we all don't want to be that, we kind of are. That's the natural progression of things, is you start to kind of progress to, this is what I was raised with. This is where my philosophy is. And so I'm going to judge everything based upon that philosophy. But that's kind of the antithesis to progression.
Do you find your relationships with your kids being better when the must that you do have, the must that we all kind of have, that part that we feel like, well, they at least must do this.
Right.
Do you find it better in your relationship with your kids if you go by the standards that they've already shown you rather than the ones you self-created based on what you would like them to be? In other words, if you have a B student, and it's traditionally a B student, but your B student is studying very hard and gets the B.
Right.
The B then becomes okay, correct?
Yeah, to an extent.
I mean, I dummied it down a little bit, but you know what I'm saying?
I'm always going to go for the A, just because that's who I am, and that's what I expect. My kids are smart.
But the conversation's different.
Yes. My main thing is, and this is actually the matter of fact, I've had that exact conversation with one of my kids. They weren't applying themselves the way I thought that they could.
Right.
And the conversation I had with them was, I'm not upset with the grade. Mm-hmm. This is where my must-haves come in.
There you go.
I'm not as upset with the grade as I am what I perceive to be a lack of effort.
Correct.
I care more about effort. If you don't get something, if you don't understand it, I'm not going to be mad at you for that. Mm-hmm. We'll figure out I'll support. That's my job, is to support you and get you the help that you need to help you understand it. I want to see the effort. And so things like not turning in assignments or sleeping and stuff, that to me is lack of effort. So that's where my must-haves come into play.
Right. So are you spiritually masturbating in that respect, or are you doing what you're supposed to do in your role?
I think both.
Okay.
I think in order to be good at my role, I do have to have some masturbation going on.
Okay.
I think that's where the life lessons, I try to use them as teachable moments, basically. With my kids, I'm big on teachable moments.
Right.
I try not to punish as much as I do, just try to teach.
Right.
And I try to do my best to have I'm not the best at it, but I try to have as few, lines as possible. Like guaranteed, non-negotiable kind of lines.
Okay.
Like one of my biggest ones is no lying.
Right.
Like that to me is, I don't care what it's about. I don't care no lying. If you lie, then I start to lose respect. We can't go down that road, which is very difficult to do with like little ones, right? Because they have this magical tool that they can get out of anything with.
Right.
Don't use that. And so I just try to drill that in all the time. But I try to do my best to be flexible when it comes to kids, because they are the new generation and they might not want my life,
Right.
But I do believe parents get into that mode, man. They get into that mode of you must be this way. This is what I see for you. And so therefore everything I do is going to revolve around this path. And I think where the problem is if that kid doesn't want that path, then that's where you're going to start butting heads. And that's when you're going to start to lose them. Because if that's not the path that they want, mind you, they're going to find their path, whether you're on board or not.
Right.
And so if you're wanting to be a part of their life, then it's up to you to be flexible to fit into that somehow and still find a way of getting your lessons across, speaking their language.
And you'd kind of rather them kind of start finding their path while you're still able to help them.
Correct.
Should they bump their head a little bit, because they're
Correct.
supposed to bump their head. Because if they wait till you pass away, or till they live your life until you're gone or they get away from you, then their learning curve on their own path then becomes a little skewed.
Yeah.
And now you've affected their growth in that respect.
Well, that's where the
Because they're going to do it.
of course. And to me, that's kind of where I see my role is essentially is I do feel that I can give them the tools necessary. So to me, that's part of my role is to foster that kind of a relationship with them,
Right.
where they understand, like, look, I'm not gonna. I'm famous, especially with the 18-year-old now. I kind of blew him away a little bit the other day. I was like, look, man, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. Like, that's not my role. My role is not to dictate to you what your life is gonna be. My role is just to give you information. My role is to give you a different perspective that I've gotten that has come with some wisdom.
Right.
I've bumped my head a few times. I've watched other people bump their head a few times.
Right.
And I'm able to have some wisdom. And so I try to do my best. And this is going to sound really, really weird and spiritual, I guess. But I try not to get invested as much in the outcome as I do the process.
Right.
In other words, the outcome is not my outcome. That's their outcome. They have to live with it. They're going to, they're the ones 20, 30 years from now, they're going to look back on all their decisions, not me. My life, I'm in a different stage of my life to where I'm kind of building my own, legacy, if you will, with my kids. And so when I did this with my groups as well, any of the groups I ran, I know in this, people of my ilk in this environment, if you will, and you can probably test this, they get so caught up with the results that they kind of get emotional about it. They get exhausted, and they get so focused on who I can help and what they do with it afterwards. And it kind of wears them out a little bit. They get that kind of fatigue. But for me, in Buddhism, actually, when Siddhartha became the Buddha, he was worried about saying, "Hey, I can't teach this to everybody," kind of a thing.
Right.
And he was told, "No, you're teaching. Look down and you see the lotus flowers that are growing through the mud. The ones that make it through the mud to get to the sun rays. That's who you're teaching it to." So for me, when I do groups, I'm not talking to everybody.
Right.
I'm talking to those who are listening to me.
Right.
And so the same thing with the kids, right? I'm not focused as much on the outcome. Like, I'm not taking it personal. It's not my outcome. It's theirs.
Right.
And so the way I see my job is to give them all the tools I can to support them in what they want to do. Because I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want my son or my daughter or my stepson or my stepdaughter, any four of the kids that I have, I don't want to have a conversation at any point in my life to where they look at me like, I don't want your life.
Right.
Like, I don't want to have that conversation. So I do my best to not put all these must-haves on them, all these parameters and conditions.
Right, and that's where the watching and listening come into play, right? I mean, that where you kind of watch where they're at and how they're doing what they're doing. So when they explain to you how they got to the grade they got to or got to the end result that they got to, if you have them explain it to you,
right,
they will naturally. You got to have some trust and faith in your kids, right? They will naturally hear their BS in their head,
yeah,
and you kind of let them know, look, I know you're BSing, that's cool, but just so you know, I hear you. More importantly to me is, do you hear you? Because at the end of the day, no, you don't have to pass. No, you can fail. Yeah. No, you don't ever have to go to college. No, you don't ever have to complete high school. I would prefer all of that.
Of course.
Even though I was blessed with kids that want to move forward. Yeah. I'm just saying I did have the conversation that you don't have to have it look the way I want it to look. However, if you can explain to me how you got to where you got to, and I feel like you're moving in the right direction, and you're putting that effort word that you use, that big E word. If you're doing that effort, then I'm cool with it. You're going to hear a lot less of me, and you're going to make me invisible. So if you want me to shut up, let me give you the template to how to shut me up.
Just do these lists.
Yeah, just do this, this, and this, and this, and you will shut me up. And I don't even care if you have a messy room. It can look like a tornado in there.
Right.
If you're doing these things, because for some reason, as a parent, these are the things I put value on.
Yeah.
And then it becomes. Although I do really care about the room, by the way, because I tell them. There's a different manipulation there.
Well,
we have a conversation.
That's just those mentality. I
guess. You just go to a real messy house and show them that's what yours is going to look like if you're okay with it.
But the kids are an easy one because it's almost expected to put requirements on, right?
Like, easy one. What do you mean by easy?
What I mean by easy one to talk about, because you're expected to put conditions on kids. That's your job as a parent.
Oh yeah, you're allowed to have some must-haves. Is that what you're saying?
Sure.
Yeah.
Where it starts to get kind of gray, I've noticed, is in personal relationships, like in spouses as well as friendships, right? that's even sometimes with the boss employee relationship. Sometimes, because I think you were talking about before the show how in theory, the boss employee relationship should be clearly outlined of what's expected of you and what you're supposed to do, and whether you meet those expectations.
Right.
Even though sometimes we all know bosses want more, and employees sometimes don't.
No, we don't ever want
Sure.
more.
But I think that's not something that happens enough.
Yeah.
Is conversation, communication. I think that people don't communicate enough about, hey, this is what you should or shouldn't expect of me. Because I've actually said that quite a few times in my own life, where people had a problem with something I'm doing. I was instead of getting angry with them, and what I was, well, maybe you need to adjust your expectations of me a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great statement.
Yeah, they don't always think it's as great.
I like it.
But that's where I come from sometimes. Like, well, maybe you need to adjust your expectations. I mean, I'm not. My job isn't to reach your expectations in life.
Yeah. Right.
But I think that's what it is, and I did post something about that not too long ago. Was the people aren't disappointing you; it's your expectations that are disappointing you.
Right.
You really like that one, huh?
Well, no, because I barely meet my own expectations. You want me to meet yours?
Exactly.
I'm already super obligated to my own self right now.
But that's what happens, right? We all get upset because we look at all these people around us, friends, relatives, spouses, presidents, bosses,
everybody,
cashiers, whatever it may be, and we get angry, we get frustrated because, once again, we had this little idea of how this interaction should have gone.
100%. Everything.
And when it doesn't go that way, we get upset.
Right.
We get mad.
I'm going to give you an example. So I used to get upset when I would open the door to for someone at a
They
store,
don't say thank you.
and they wouldn't say thank you. I used to always say, "You're welcome," really loud, right? Get real sarcastic about it, and then now I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
But I had to ask myself, am I opening the door really for them, or am I doing it for me? And when I realized, no, I'm opening the door because I think it's the right thing to do.
And you want to get that sense of I did
because I know it's polite. They are allowed to be busy. They're allowed to have their mind elsewhere. They're allowed to be completely distracted. Hey, hell, they're allowed to be assholes if they want to be. The point is that I'm doing it because I damn well want to do it.
I used to use that example, matter of fact.
Okay.
And it worked really, really well in all the groups I did, especially the younger groups. Because I would say to them, okay, and here's an example of, all right, so you open the door because I used to do the same thing. I was that guy. I'd open the door and be like, "You're welcome," because I took it almost as like a personal thing. Like I did, how dare you not acknowledge what I just did for you?
Yeah.
Which sounds ridiculous where I'm at now in my life. But regardless, what I said was, if you open the door for somebody and they just walked past you and ignored you, you would get angry. But what if I told you later on that person just lost their job, their house burned down the night before, their wife left them, their dog died, and they're just coming in to get some milk real quick? Would that change it at all? And everybody unanimously, well, yeah, that's different. Well, then how do you know? How do you know that person wasn't? So it was, once again, it wasn't about that person. It was all about your must-haves. If I do this, you must do this for me.
Right.
Well, that's not their purpose on life. They didn't wake up that day saying, I got to go make this dude happy, whenever they open the door for me.
Right.
That's not their purpose in life, man.
Right.
And so that's where I think that we kind of get led astray is we always put our expectations, our must-haves on every situation and every person, and we oftentimes confuse when it works out in our favor, we think that's a good thing. Well, just because it didn't work out in your favor doesn't mean it's not necessarily a good thing, right? That just means it didn't work out in your favor. And that's how we oftentimes define something as positive or negative. That's why I don't like, for those who've been in my groups, I don't like the positive negative discussion. I hate the positive negative because to me, the like I just did with JoJo on a couple shows ago about our flat tires a negative thing. And everybody, they're negative. Well, what about the dude who makes a living off of that?
Right.
So it's all about perspective. And so I think it's easy to confuse, hey, this is great. Why is it great? Well, because, what I expected to happen happened. Well, that's just coincidence. It's not necessarily a good thing. But I see it all the time, man. I see it on, in the news, the presidency thing. Like, everybody's so upset about presidency. What I hear more often than not, other than, a couple people will talk about some bills that he signed or some executive orders or whatever. But the overwhelming majority, what I see people don't like is his tweets. Stuff that he says, things of that nature. And their big problem is, it's not presidential. I can't believe he said that. He's acting like a 2-year-old and all these other things. And I'm thinking to myself, really? First of all...
Yeah, the sky's falling.
Yeah, first of all, I've met some people who have a a certain status in public, and I've seen what they say and do when they're not in public. Let me tell you something. Even Obama, and I was cool with Obama. He was one of the greatest speakers I've ever heard in my life. I promise you, when he wasn't up on that podium, was saying some stuff that you wouldn't have approved of.
Yeah, and even if he's perfect, I mean, listen, that's just we all. And that's the thing. You hit on it, man. People expect something different from that guy,
sure.
or from their postman, or from the person that works at 7-Eleven, or from their barista at what do you call it? Starbucks.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter.
No.
When you're a person that walks around that everybody must be a certain way in order for you to be happy in your day, you're just walking around looking for misery.
Pretty much.
You're commenting on everybody else's life.
That's where the judging comes in.
Yeah, and so whether you're doing that to avoid your own, whether you're doing that because you're already miserable, whether you're doing that because someone did it to you, I don't know.
Man.
But the point is that Trinity, I think what we need to know from your perspective is then if we're listening to you right now, if we're listening to the show right now, and we're saying, you know what, I do that. I must admit, I do that. Well, then what is it doing to me? By doing that, the more I practice that, number one, it's making it much easier to do it again and again and again and to more people, right?
You've created that pathway now.
But so what is it doing to me? Is it affecting my insides? Is it affecting just my mentality? Is it affecting my health? What is it doing to me?
It's affecting you and everybody around you. It's affecting, well, think about it. Like that whole scenario of the person not saying thank you for the door. Right. So let's say you open the door and the person doesn't say thank you. But let's say you're on your way in to the store, and the person doesn't say thank you. Now you're irritated. Now you're like, why is this person not doing this? And so now that you're focused on that, when you go to the cashier, and you're going to be rude to the cashier potentially now because you're still kind of dealing with all that, and you pass it to him. Mm-hmm. Now he's going to be rude to the next person in line because he's like, why is this idiot giving me attitude? I didn't do anything to him. And then so he's going to give attitude to the next person in line. Then they're going to take that with them to when they go to on their way to work. Somebody cuts them off. It's basically, it creates this energy that just doesn't stop. And I always I always say it ends up with a dog getting kicked somewhere.
That's weird that you say that because I have that exact same story
really?
that I've used for all these years, and I always say the dog gets kicked.
Yeah,
that's the end of the story.
It always ends with some dog getting kicked.
The dog or the cat gets kicked.
Why are you kicking me? I didn't do anything.
That's weird that you say that story because people that have gotten counseled by me, they heard that. Yeah,
very cool.
Wow, that's weird.
But yeah, it always ends with a dog
synchronicity.
Getting kicked. Yeah, somebody comes home, they've been pissed off all day. They've kept that energy with them all day, and the energy has to go somewhere, and it ends up with a dog getting kicked, right? And so. It does. It affects your mood. It affects. I mean, how many times have you come home? I don't want to get anybody in trouble here. How many people has somebody met somebody else in the daytime that they're like, man, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you in kind of a bad mood today?
Right.
It has nothing to do with you, but they just experienced something in the day that didn't go the way they thought it should have gone, and they haven't let that go yet. Right. And then they spill out on everybody around them.
Right. It
happens all the time, and so I think that's what we don't realize.
That's why Dana doesn't leave home.
See, that's why.
That's why she stays home. I don't let her out because if I let her out, she might bring some damage to my house. So she's not allowed out of the house.
But yeah, but it does. So it affects your relationships. It affects your way of thinking. It affects your judgment. If you're more agitated, you're more likely to take more risks, things of that nature. I mean, it's this domino effect that it sounds like it's bigger than it really is, but it's really that big. Right? Like, that's what we don't realize. I mean, even myself, I've noticed back in the day, not as much now, but back in the day, even when I was like irritated at stuff, I was more likely to, if I had to go somewhere, to speed and take risks and everything else.
Right.
Not because I had to get there any faster, but because I was irritated with something that just took place that I didn't like. And what irritated me wasn't the thing itself, was it didn't fit my expectations.
Right.
So had I changed my expectations, I probably wouldn't have got as upset.
Right.
And so... and that led to me getting in the car and making dumb decisions, or maybe honking at somebody, whatever it may be.
While driving, people are masturbating all the time while driving.
Oh yeah.
They think you must drive the way they want you to drive, like and that happens to me when I'm not in a good mood.
Sure.
You if you're in the fast lane, you better be at least going the speed limit or 5 over.
Sure.
Because at that point, then I want to masturbate right behind you and be like, really?
Honk, honk,
so it's frustrating. Sure. But when I'm in my good zone that I try to be in when I drive, and I'm doing all the right things, and at the moment,
you're zen.
then I don't stay in that fast lane at all, because there's always people that are driving faster. There are always people that are more self-important at that moment in time, and you have to let them go and not get frustrated with it. You just have to try to avoid getting hit or in the accident that they're trying to get into.
And there's another area of life actually, and I've noticed this a lot lately, and I mentioned to you earlier. I've seen it a lot, and I don't want to get too far into it because I think that could be potentially a whole other show one day. But I've joined a lot of groups lately, like Buddhism groups and other things on Facebook. And what I've noticed though is whenever I'll speak for myself, right? Whenever people find out that I'm a practicing Buddhist or this is the philosophy that I try to go towards, their expectations for me immediately skyrocket. Like somewhere, my what I said and their interpretation were much different.
Right.
I said I practice spirituality.
Yeah.
What they heard was I'm perfect.
Yeah, I'm better than you.
Yeah. And so they immediately then like dissect every single thing that I'm doing.
Right.
So if you're Buddhist, then you must do this, then you must do that, and you must always be this. Really?
Right.
No. And I think that I see it. Go ahead.
People do that to Christians all the time, right?
They
like
do.
they're not allowed to do anything wrong.
Yeah, every walk of life.
Right.
And therapeutic stuff. Like even I'm not even in recovery, but because I'm in the recovery world, people automatically look at me like I should never have a drink anymore.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Even though I'm not in recovery.
Yeah. Right.
I'm allowed to.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you practice for a while. No,
there you go.
Nah, you don't need to be.
But dude, I don't even crave it anymore.
That's weird to not crave it.
I just don't even care.
But you never really craved it, anyway.
No, I wasn't a big drinker.
But the point is that people have an expectation on you all the time, and they think that just because you're talking about addiction or recovery, you should be in recovery.
Yes.
So you get that. You're the president. You're the president of a foundation about recovery.
All the time I get that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my look doesn't help, I guess, but I look like the addict in the room. But I've noticed that a lot even when I post things about it.
I always just tell them you're in denial.
There you go.
Behind your back.
I post things on the internet a lot of times, and I'll get people reaching out to me who think that I'm in recovery. I'm like,
of course.
I'm not. Because apparently, in order to have compassion for people who are in recovery, you must be in recovery yourself.
Well, I think going back to that thing you said, everybody's an expert, right? By the way, if you guys haven't noticed, everybody's an expert in everything.
Oh, we can talk about that.
Well, yeah, because as soon as someone does something, they become an expert in it.
Yes. Yes. Everybody's an expert.
How many expert Buddhists have you met recently in these groups?
Oh man,
a lot of expert Buddhists.
Well, the thing that I've seen a lot is you're not Buddhist enough, kind of a thing.
Ah, yeah.
Like if you don't know all the, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not a historian. I'm not an expert. I didn't get into Buddhism to be the smartest Buddhist in the room. I didn't get into it because I wanted to know what happened 3,000 years ago. I literally got into it because I just wanted to find some peace in my life, and I have.
And it worked.
And so that's what I stick with.
Right.
But a lot of people do. It can be used as a tool, right? Like they use it themselves to judge others at times.
Namaste.
I'll leave that one alone. But anyways, so but yeah, if you don't know like all the terminology or the history or somebody wrote on one of like the 29th Buddha or something like what the
what?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's like, dude, I'm not a historian. I've never claimed to be.
Right.
I just claim to look, this is the path that means something to me. That's what I walk down. But they're all experts. And the funny part is I hear some of the stuff that they're saying, and they lose sight of the main goal, which is lack of suffering. And I think that happens when you start to put all these must-haves, you lose the main goal, the main concept. Like you
increase suffering.
Well, in a friendship, right? If you put all these expectations on your friend and you make them try to live up to all these expectations, you miss sight of the fact that it's just another human being.
Right.
And let's call it what it is. Another human being going through life that you saw like, hey, I want to hang out with that person.
Right.
That's really all it turned out to be.
Right.
They don't owe you anything. They're not, they're on their own path in life as well.
And it's okay to have friends just for a specific thing, right? For instance, if I have a friend that's just a good listener, then I'm really not expecting that person to be able to give me advice. I'm expecting that person to listen.
Yeah.
But then if I have a friend that's really good at giving advice, then I'm not expecting that person to listen.
Yeah.
Because there are people that I know I call that no matter what I say, they're on pause the whole time, and they're going to tell me a piece of advice. They think that I called so they can give me advice. They really must believe that.
Yeah.
Because I can tell them anything, and then by what they say, I could tell they heard nothing of what I said.
Yeah.
So for that friend, instead of getting upset, just know that's an advice-giving friend.
Well, and that's where it comes down to allowing people to be where they're at.
Yeah.
Like, if that's who they are, then and that's okay.
And that's cool.
Not everybody has to be what you think they should be. Like, it's okay.
A Boston Red Sox fan is going to be a Boston Red Sox fan. Don't expect a Red Sox fan to be thrilled that the Yankees win the pennant.
Yeah, that's the expectations are the mother of all disappointment, man. It really is. We set ourselves up so much for disappointment every time we expect something.
And if Buddhism is about, walking away from that suffering or helping yourself through that suffering, well, then aren't you creating more suffering then?
Yes.
And I'm going to go further because I'm not Buddhist, but
Bring it on, man.
But why not practice?
I'm an expert.
There you are. Why not practice a Buddhist belief system, which is not just Buddhist, but it's other spiritual belief systems, that suffering is just painful to you and you alone?
Well, suffering is optional.
100%.
You don't have to.
And people don't want to believe that, Trinity.
Well,
right?
example. No, they don't.
That's the argued part,
that
right?
Is, oh,
they want to blame. No,
Oh.
I'm suffering. I don't want to suffer. You
Because
think I
of this,
want to
this,
feel
and
like this?
yes.
You think I want to be like this?
Yeah, if
Yeah,
I had
a little bit.
If I had $1
I
for
do.
every single time I heard that, yes,
Yeah.
I'd be a millionaire at the moment because that is the one that causes the most arguments. Is when I get to the second truth, and the second truth being, you cause your own suffering through aversion and clinging, right?
Right.
And in this case, clinging to your expectations of what should be.
Right.
That right there causes the most arguments because yes, everybody they focus on the pain, right? The whatever it was that didn't go the way you wanted it to go,
Right.
and they forget that that's not what caused the suffering. That was just the thing that you didn't care for. What caused your suffering was your inability to let go of what you thought it should have been.
And how you define it, right?
Yeah, accept it for what it is, not what you think it should be.
Right.
And that right there, man, that's where the masturbation comes in. That's where the
Right.
must-haves. There's all these conditions and all these like rules and parameters and expectations, all just stuff that we put on
Right.
ourselves, the people around us, our spouses, our friends, the
Life.
cashier down the street, life itself, the president, whatever it may
The
be.
weather.
Yeah. All these expectations, that right there is a source of your suffering, people. It's not the neighbor. The neighbor is who the neighbor is. I'm famous for saying, I like to think I'm famous for saying that, is, you can't expect a table to be a chair. Right? And people, they walk into a room and they see a chair and they're like, oh man, there's too many chairs. We need a table. Maybe you're right. Maybe this whole room would just look, maybe you're a feng shui expert and it would be completely perfect. It doesn't change the fact that chair is still a chair. No matter how much you want it to be a table, it's going to always be a chair.
Right.
And you have to accept that fact. And the more you come in every day expecting it to be different than what it is, you're doing that to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't realize is the presidency. There's some people who are really angry with this presidency, and it's like ruining their days.
Yeah.
And they want to blame the president.
Right.
Dude, I hate to break it to you. Like, he is who he is. It has nothing to do with you. Like, he's not waking up every morning, and I'm going to use your name. He's not waking up every morning like, I wonder how Louis feels about it. No, dude,
No.
you're not even a blip on his radar. He's doing his thing.
Yeah.
You're the one, and not you personally, but you.
Yeah.
If you're one of those people who wakes up every day and just runs to your phone or whatever it is to look at the news and see what the latest tweet is going to be from the president, just so you can be outraged and go tell everybody how much it sucks, that's your fault.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying I agree or disagree with what he puts, because to be frank with you, I think some of the stuff he puts out there is retarded, right? But it doesn't bother me because I don't care. What I care about is how's my wallet doing? How are my kids doing? Are we safe? Are we good? That's what I focus on. I've accepted the fact that he's going to talk like a toddler. That's just who he's going to be. And I think that those expectations are what's causing everybody to get mad and angry. And they don't see that. They spend all their time saying, well, if he didn't do this way, yeah, you would. You just find something else to be angry about, because you still have that philosophy of blaming everybody else for your suffering. It's on you, right? Because if it was hands down just that bad, everybody would be suffering from it.
Yeah.
But they're not.
And that's the other thing. I think that sometimes we, a lot, if we're going to use that example, is these same individuals that you're talking about, if you hang out with other individuals that think just like you and are equally as frustrated like you tend to believe that everybody's feeling this. But you forget that 50% of the population is not. And then so the go-to then is that, well, those are racist. And then now you get to it. Now you get to even a more ridiculous state where now you're condemning half of the population just because they don't agree with you. And I think that's the real harmful effect of this masturbation, is that you tend to get self-righteous and tend to believe that not only is your way the right way,
it's the only way,
but it's the only way. And those that aren't are moving backwards in time, moving backwards in life, and are not deserving of your love, of your friendship, of your kindness, of your respect. Because the problem is there's a lot of people not respecting the other side right now, not being kind to the other side.
No, not at all.
And then, it's the same kind of mentality of those that say, I give respect when I get respect. You know what? That's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
You know why I give respect? I give respect because that's the kind of person
right
I
thing to
am.
do.
You have no control over me being a respectful person or being a disrespectful person. You have no control over me being an angry person or a happy person. If I give you that control, it's because I'm off my game.
Pretty much. And I think that's where people get lost. And I think that's what the masturbation is.
Right.
You do it to yourself by putting all
Exactly.
these musts.
Exactly.
In order for you to get my respect, you must do it. No, you don't. I'm gonna respect you.
Yeah,
just
where's
as a
that
human
meeting?
being.
I need to go to, I need to
meetings.
start a masturbation anonymous meeting to help everybody stop masturbating.
Oh, it's not anonymous. Just look on Facebook. They're all on there.
Yeah, they're all out there, pretty open.
They're not trying to hide it. So,
Everybody go wash your hands, will you?
you stop masturbating.
You're gonna go blind.
Yeah, I got. So I got three things.
Or they are blind. Masturbating does lead to blindness. It does. That
And there
is
it is,
a
kids.
Buddhist term. Masturbating leads to blindness.
And
You
there it
can't
is.
see reality.
And there it is. That's all we needed to have right there. That was the lesson for the day, kids. No. So I do have three things, right? Because, with each show, I do my best to try to come up with an actual a plan of action, if you will. Like, hey, great. It sounds awesome. I find myself doing that. How do I stop? How do I fix it, right? And obviously, I can't, Rome wasn't built in a day. But I can give you some tips. I can give you some ideas. And so the three things that I have right now. The first one is understand that everything is subjective. Not everybody defines, things the way you do. That whole "I don't want your life." You have to understand that just because you see something as a fit. So, for instance, raising kids. Just because I think my kids need to get off the video games, for instance, and go out there and have physical meetings with people, doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it has to be. I have to understand what they want out of their life and what life they're going into and how the world's evolving, and so. You have to understand that some things are subjective, and you have to allow them to be subjective and realize that just because it's your perspective that it should be this way doesn't mean that's the way it is or the way it has to be. It's just one of many. Number two is you got to learn to love others where they're at, and that was what I posted on my social media post, is accepting people where they're at. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, and I think that's where people get this acceptance with agreement kind of mixed up sometimes. I can accept that this is who you are and this is where you're at in your life. It doesn't mean I have to agree with you. You might have some crazy stance on something, and I might completely disagree with you, but I can still respect you as a human being because you don't have the same insight that I have. All I can do at that point is not add to your suffering, not add to your pain. I can love you where you're at and kind of give you support, and I can encourage you to find other ways of doing it, but you're still deserving of my love and respect as a human being. I think that's a given, and it needs to be a given in today's world. But for those of us who are trying to move past some of that and kind of grow a little bit, that's what we have to keep in mind is those around us that we might not agree with, we still have to love them where they're at on their journey. Because you yourself, if you look back on it, there's been things in your life that maybe those around you didn't agree with that were trying to tell you about it, and you didn't agree with them at that point, but now maybe you do. Now maybe you're at a point in your life where you look back and realize, oh man, I really changed a lot. Well, you were on that journey, you were on your path. And no matter how many people tried to interject, you were still on your path and there's nothing anybody could do about it. Well, look around. Everybody's on that same path. And they're allowed to be on that path, and that's totally okay. They're allowed to arrive at their destination when they get there, and their destination might not be the one you think they should be at. And then the third one is be yourself and communicate. Be yourself, meaning, kind of know who you are and what you're about, and communicate that effectively to those around you. If somebody does have some expectations on you that you don't think should be there, communicate that. Like, hey, man, that's just not who I am. I'm not that guy. Stop trying to be everything for everybody and just be yourself. Be who you are and allow people to love you for who you are. And that who you are is going to change, and that's totally okay. Grow, man. Once again, if you go back and read or watch my show on personal growth, if you're not changing and evolving, you're actually going backwards. And changing and evolving doesn't necessarily mean going to everybody else's perspective of what that should look like. That's for you to figure out for yourself what that looks like. But the point is, if you're here we go. One of my biggest fears, and I think you agree with me on that one. One of my biggest fears is to look back 20 years from now and still be the same. I don't want to be the same now, 20 years from now. I want to grow and change. What that looks like, I have no clue. but I just know I want to be different. And so I think that that's where we have to understand. So, masturbation is definitely a big no-no. Thank you, Dope Doctor, for joining me here again. I think we're going to see more of it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I like our little dynamic here. It's less of me just pontificating for an hour, but no. So, anyways, that's it. You know, we're wrapping it up. I'll see you guys next week. In the meantime, now that you know better, do better. Peace.
I think he plans it all out. Just makes it up as he goes along.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Affirmative.